Step 16 is doing a final review. We've gone through step 1 through 15 up to this point. We've done everything from putting logic in, developing activities, putting costs in. We've done a lot of different things through the schedule. And now we need to go look back and do a final review to ensure that we're accurately portraying what needs to occur. We want to make sure that it makes sense. What I do to help me do this is I go and I look at right next to the funnel, the filter. I open up the WBS, the group and sort function, and what I'll do is I'll limit the WBS to like one level. Let me see, or maybe two. Yeah, 2 levels would probably be the best. And what I want to see is maybe I was wrong, maybe 3 levels, because I didn't realize we had the subsequent levels. And what we want to do is we want to show pre-construction, construction, and post-construction. So right now, can we close each of these and have it broken out? And we can. So by doing that, and what we're able to do is we're going to throw all those we're going to throw all the activities together within some basic summaries. We want to sort by start date. Remember, if you click on, the nice thing about Primavera is the arrow shows you from beginning to the end, right? It's going to show you the early start date from the beginning to the end. The reason that we didn't, we have it not where every activity is thrown in together, and it's only within where we broke out pre-construction, because we don't want to show some of the pre-construction with the construction activities, because we're in the construction activities, we want to make sure it makes logical sense between the construction activities, not necessarily from the pre-construction activities. So we want to separate those two because it's easier. In my experience, it tells me that we need to separate those to be able to show that. So we want to see if the logic makes sense. We want to sort by start date. We want to have the WBS to a level where you can see pre-construction, construction, or post-construction. And then we want to walk through. So let's go down. We'll go ahead and minimize pre-con. We'll just look at construction now. Does it make sense that we have, you may need to zoom in a little bit, okay? Does it make sense that we want mobilization? Then, at the same time, we can be doing field layout, and then after we come back after a weekend, we can start excavation, column footings, place columns. This could be a good example here. If you don't, you can. Some people like turning on the relationship lines. I think it's helpful. It can be helpful, and then you can kind of see the relationship lines between the individual activities. You notice the natural cascading effect from left to right. Logic is extremely important. The biggest complaint we have when we deal with the schedule is it doesn't make sense. It doesn't reflect reality. And how that occurs most times because we don't have the correct logic. Now, when this is a great example here. The structural steel roof joist. You see there's a huge gap here, and we have to ask ourselves, why do we need that huge gap? We can look back at logic and we say, well, it boils down to the steel being delivered, okay? Because placed slabs on grade is not holding it back. The steel delivery is holding it back, and that may show us an opportunity, in the future that we have. But we want to make sure all the logic makes sense from one activity to the other, and then by doing that and going through this step and spending time, you'll spend about 40% of all your time doing this final review. We will ensure that it reflects reality as close as possible, because we don't want to have the complaint that the schedule doesn't make sense. If the logic's right, the schedule's right, and nobody can complain about it. So logic right, schedule right. So when we get done doing this, we want to reactivate our work breakdown structure, obviously. We want to make sure we're showing all, okay? we will also want to make sure we have all the important columns showing. We can go back to the the column things and making sure that we have early start. We want to have activity ID, activity name, duration, man days, remaining duration, early start, early finish. We also want to have late start and late finish. Okay, that's something that we don't have in there. And late start, late finish, total float, budgeted total cost, physical percent complete, earned value costs. I would actually move total float to the very, actually where it is fine. So we want to have cost grouped together. We want to have dates and float grouped together. And those are some essential columns that you would want to see. After that, I also want to come in here and compress these a little bit. My big complaint is let's make use of the paper. We want to make sure that the schedule is one wide. We don't want it to be more than one wide because it makes it difficult to read when we do a printout. And I'm going to go over that in reports. So we want to minimize the columns as much as possible within a certain level of acceptability. So in conclusion, we've done a final review. We've gone through step 1 through 15 and up to this point, and now we've gone through and we're looking at the schedule to make sure it makes logical sense for every individual step. Make sure that the logic makes sense. Make sure that the total float is still 0. Make sure we have the right start date, the right end date. We want to have a cascading effect from left to right. And we understand that logic is extremely important within a project schedule. So that's step number 16. I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but it's extremely important that you go through step number 16 thoroughly and spend the time. Most people fail in project schedules because they don't make a deliberate effort to go through all the relationships and look at the logic and ensure that it makes sense. So that covers step number 16.